Hi everybody, my name is Scott Weidenkifowitz, and in this video I want to walk through a very common thing that a lot of photographers tend to overlook or sometimes forget to do when they're editing photos in Lightroom. Take a look at my screen. So this is a photo I made in 2013 in Arizona. Now I was with a bunch of friends and we were up on a mountain in Arizona photographing, and then one of my friends decided to stand off at the edge of the cliff like this, and I was just wanted to photograph it. So it's nothing amazing. It's nothing mind-blowing. It's just a photo that I have in my archive from 2013. So now I want to show you here under camera calibration, there's an area called profile, and by default, it is at Adobe standard. Now, it's okay. The image is kind of flat. I could go through and make some corrections under basic or tone curve or whatever to brighten it up and enhance the contrast, but I want to show you something interesting. Now, Adobe Standard is the default color profile for all cameras. It's basically the standard where Adobe automatically detects the raw file, and this is only for raw files. This is not for JPEGs, and will automatically tune it for that. It usually comes out pretty flat, but there's a lot of other defaults built in, and some depend on your brand, and some camera manufacturers also provide their own. So if I click on profile, you're going to see I have a bunch, and there's a bunch of film replications. This is actually from Masted Labs. I think some are from Visco and so on. But and then there's some custom ones from my own customers, because I make my own from using the Color Checker Passport. Now, before you even do this, I do recommend that your monitor is calibrated and your photos are calibrated, especially if you're doing studio work. But if you're out in the field, you might not carry a color checker with you. But I always make sure that my monitor is calibrated, actually both of them. So I have two monitors, both are calibrated using the Color Monkey from X-Rite. And then when I am doing any professional work, I am always using the Color Checker Passport if I'm doing portraits, for example. Now, you can see here that there are camera landscape, camera neutral, camera portrait, and camera standard, and of course Adobe Standard is checked. So I'm sorry there's so many other profiles here to get in the way and sort of distract you, but I have a lot in here that a lot of presets have made. But if I click on camera landscape, look what happens. You can see the image change dramatically. The greens and the blues now have more pop to them. Now, if I go to neutral, camera neutral, you can see it's extremely flat. In fact, it might even be flatter than Adobe Standard, and it is. So camera neutral is extremely flat. That is a starting point with absolutely nothing done to the image. Camera portrait, it's going to be a little bit more contrasty, a little bit more saturation, especially in skin tones. And then camera standard is going to be, a pretty good starting point. Now, this is what I would say is a go-to instead of Adobe Standard. This is going to be, at least for Nikon shooters, is going to be a go-to starting point instead of Adobe Standard. Look at the difference between camera standard and Adobe. Adobe Standard lost some color in the blues and a little bit in the greens. If you go back to camera standard, I gain that a little bit back. Then there's camera vivid, which is going to be even more saturated in all of the colors, not just the skin tones, not just the blues and greens, but everything. So always make sure that you are starting from a certain point. Now this is the same thing if you're using Adobe Camera Raw. It has the same camera profile functionality. And again, you might have some presets, or you might have a camera manufacturer that provides their own. And if they're providing their own, use them. Otherwise, I would say avoid the Adobe Standard and make camera standard your new standard, or maybe something else. If you only do portraits, maybe you want camera portrait as your standard. Now, if you do that, you can then hold down the Alt-Option key on a Mac at least and hit Set Default. And this will actually set this settings, really it'll set all of your settings here as your new default. So anything you import will automatically default to whatever you specified here. Now, if you're using something like Masted Labs and you want to go ahead and use one of theirs, you can do that. So I can go ahead and just do that. And now, obviously, this doesn't look so great, but you're supposed to be intended for really any photos, any preset that you use with them. And same thing with Visco and Replichrome and all of those. So with that said, I will say, try to use a standard one. When I say standard one, I don't mean camera standard. Try to use a standard one that is made for your camera, not made for a preset, okay? So again, camera landscape, camera neutral, camera portrait, camera standard, camera vivid. If you're using a Fuji camera, maybe you have one for Fuji's, because Fuji's and Lightroom don't play so well naturally because of the sensor that Fuji uses. And maybe you have a Canon and you have a custom. You can also make custom profiles too. But so there you go. That's my recommendation. Go ahead and look at the profiles and choose one that suits your default photos better than Adobe Standard. And if you think Adobe Standard's better, just use that. But you might get more out of your processing if you're starting from a photo that is actually what you saw in your camera on the back of your screen, rather than what Adobe is interpreting it. So thanks for watching. And if you'd like to learn more about Lightroom, you can check out my courses, Camera to Completion, Lightroom Workflow course, or even check out my new course, Camera to Completion Process.